Welcome to The After Party, a TSF Network podcast. This is a mixtape of purposeful, encouraging, and fun content from across all the shows who are part of our podcast network. I'm Annie F. Downs. I'm one of the co-founders of the network.
And I'm Fallon Klug, the Director of Operations here at TSF Network. Thanks for tuning in today, friends. We're excited you're here. So today, our friend Hannah Mooney interviews her friend Jenny Mars, who is the star of HGTV's Fixer to Fabulous.
Yes.
We are so grateful to have Hannah on our network. This show is life-giving each week as she dives into her faith and shares those conversations with friends like Jenny. So we're happy to share this today.
And Hannah's voice is just so soothing.
Oh, the soothest.
It's so good. All right, we know you're going to love this episode as Hannah and Jenny talk about all things life and how Fixer to Fabulous came to be. So many exciting things are in the works. So let's go.
This is Unexpected with Hannah Love. In this podcast, you will gain a new perspective of how God loves you enough to call you to things that you couldn't have imagined for yourself.
Jenny Mars, everyone. Welcome, Jenny. It's so good to have you on. For those of you who do not know, this is my sweet friend, Jenny Mars. She is host of Fixer to Fabulous on HGTV. I think you're going into, your fifth season?
Yes, we are. Yes, we're filming our fifth season right now. It'll be airing this fall. Yes.
Wow. And you've got a book coming out.
Yes.
I saw that. You've got a brick and mortar store, a mercantile.
Yes.
And you have now launched a furniture line. I'm like, plus you have 5 kids. So no big deal. You don't have anything going on at all.
I know.
Jenny,
and I didn't get ready today because we're not filming. So I realized we're filming.
It's
so just ignore.
That's okay.
This is a non-filming day.
This is a real life interview.
I love it.
Well, thank you for carving out time for us in your busy schedule.
Of course.
So I will give a little backstory here for everyone about how Shay and I met you guys. I think that we discovered you during quarantine. You had just put out your first season, and we just totally binge watched Fixer to Fabulous. I'm such a home fixer person, and y'all are from Arkansas, and we're from Arkansas, and we were like, we love them, and we love what you're doing. Love your passion and your heart for fixing up and restoring historic homes and really building community around that. It resonates so much with us. His dad's a builder too, as you know.
Yeah.
And I think Shay immediately reached out and was like, we're going to be friends with Dave. And so funny. It took us a little while to catch you guys, but we finally caught you. And we were huggers, and I knew that it was going to be a friendship from the start. So love that you guys have been put in our lives. And I'm just going to toss it over to you. And I guess I'll ask you the number one question here about your life. It's wild and it's crazy. If someone had told you 5 to 10 years ago, could you have imagined that your life would be what it is right now?
No. And I actually think that's a good thing. I think Dave and I were actually just talking about this yesterday. It's kind of funny that you asked that, because we were talking about how in many things with our life, we haven't really had these like grand plans. It's more of, okay, God, how can you use us now? And I thought about that when I was writing my book. I was telling the story of originally moving to Arkansas and just taking that first step of saying, yes, I'll move. And had I known then all that was going to come, I would have been overwhelmed. Like, had God said, here's all the great stuff, here's all the hard stuff that's going to happen to you, I probably would have said, I'm good, thanks. I just want to stay safe and comfortable. And I think the same thing for the show. We were talking about that, if we would have known when we said yes to a sizzle reel. Mm-hmm. And we first said no to everything. And then we were like, okay, fine, we'll just do a sizzle reel. And then we were like, okay, we'll just do the pilot, because then that'll be just a fun thing that we'll do one time and that'll be the end of it. And so it was just like this one step after another. And I think that is the only way to approach something big and scary, is just doing one step at a time. So I think if I would have known, I would have said, no, thank you. That sounds insane. And now that we're saying this, I'm like, let me pull this up. I've been reading through Deuteronomy this week or this month, and Deuteronomy 7:21-22. I love this verse, and it's something that I've read many times, and it never really stood out. I never really noticed it, but I really this week noticed it, and it has applied in so many ways this past couple weeks, actually. No, do not be afraid of those nations, for the Lord your God is among you, and he is a great and awesome God. The Lord your God will drive out those nations ahead of you, little by little. You will not clear them away all at once, for if you did, the wild animals would multiply too quickly for you. That's Deuteronomy 7:21-22. And I had highlighted the words little by little. And I think like that applies to so many things in life. And I love that God specifically says, I'm going to do this one little step at a time, because if I did it all at once, the land would actually be ruined because all the wild animals would take over. And the Israelites couldn't understand that at the time. They just wanted to go and get the land. And so it didn't make sense to them. Why do I have to do it in just these little chunks? Why is it taking so long? But he knew, and he was the whole process was for their good. And I think that applies so much in life. Just that term, little by little, I have used so many times over the past couple weeks. I have a friend who's fostering, and they're in the process of trying to get the adoption and all of the steps that takes, of all the court and all the things. And we just keep every once in a while, she'll text me or I'll text her little by little, and just as a reminder, like it, just one step, one day at a time. So I think it applies in so many ways. Yeah.
I love it. And you're so right. And that's like how our faith walk is, isn't it? Like you can't really see what's ahead.
Right.
But you're like, okay, God, I'll like take this one little baby step.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, like he leads you to the next thing and the next.
Right.
But if we saw the whole picture and like maybe the valley in front of us, we'd be like, I'm not going there.
Exactly. So, yes.
And it's kind of like the verse, your word is a light into my path and a lamp into my feet. And you think like in the darkness, if you have a lamp and you're just holding it at your feet and you can only see like the steps in front of you.
Yeah. Yes.
It's so good.
Yes.
Oh man.
I love that.
I love that you pulled that out.
I know.
I've never noticed that either.
I know. I had never known. I mean, I've read that before, and that little phrase has stood out and has been so good. I love that. So anyway,
a living word.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, amazing.
Yes.
Okay. Well, after you did the sizzle reel, tell us like what followed that.
Okay. So we did a sizzle, which is crazy because Charlotte was 2 at the time. Like we have this little video still somewhere in the files, in the archives of this 5-minute sizzle reel that we did. And the kids were all there, and Charlotte was 2, which now she's 9. So that's just been, I know, it's crazy. So we submitted that, and then they called and said they wanted to do a pilot. We were actually, as a family, spending a month at the time when they called, we were in South Africa and Zimbabwe. And we were standing in South Africa. Dave and I were out on the porch of our place that we were staying at, and they called and said, we want to do a pilot. And we were like, I don't know. I don't know that we do. But I had just gotten back from Zim to meet with our leader there for our nonprofit work that we do. And we both, I think obviously God knew the timing, but the timing was so perfect because basically we said, okay, if we do this, it'll probably just be a pilot, which is great. That's all we want. Right. We don't want a whole thing, but we'll do it as a way to try to get a little bit more light, a little more influence, a little more whatever for the work that's being done by our amazing leaders in Zimbabwe. And we had just left there. And so we're like super passionate, we really wanted to do as much as we could there with our team there. And we're like, you know what, maybe this show is happening so that we could tell people about this work. And so that's why we said yes. And it's awesome that it happened, that they called us in South Africa, because we were in the middle of all of this. And we're like, that's, and to this day, that's still our reason why that we said yes to do it, was just to try to share, we use it as a ministry, really.
Right.
But yeah, so we did the pilot. That was June 2017. And then that aired in the fall, and they picked up a season, which we were like not expecting. The pilot was just crazy because we renovated a house that was built in the late 1800s, I think, or early 1900s. I can't remember the exact day, but we renovated it in just about 1 month. And it was so crazy to try to figure out, because we'd been renovating and building for a long time, since 2004 is when Dave started the business. And so that wasn't new to us, but trying to figure out how to renovate a house on a production timeline and actually get it done in such a short time and have camera crews there filming.
Right.
So you're trying to work, but then you have to stop the work so you can talk. I mean, it was just so different, and we couldn't figure out, we're like, how can we get this done? And we did it. And we thought that was the most exhausting, insane, crazy thing we've ever done. We'll never do that again. That was fun. Check it off the list. Cool, move on. And then they asked us to do a season, and we were like, I don't know how we could possibly do a whole season. And at the time they wanted 8 episodes, and it just felt so daunting. But we said yes, and we figured it out. And that was in 2018. We filmed, and then we were just about to wrap the season, and they called and said they wanted 2 more episodes. And I started crying because I was like, I just can't do it. I don't know how. I just didn't have the bandwidth. I was like, I need a break. There's no way I could do it 2 more. There's no way.
Right.
And so we actually took a month off, had some downtime, and then we came back and did the last 2. And then right after we wrapped, a week after we wrapped, I found out I was pregnant with Luke, which was such a surprise. I mean, huge shock. And I was like, okay, if this happens, if we do another season next year, I don't know how I'm going to do this while I'm pregnant or with a newborn. Right. I just couldn't figure it out. I was like, I don't understand how we could possibly pull this off, because the hours we worked and the time, everything, it was just so hard. So it turns out that our show didn't air. So the network had been purchased. They were going through a merger. And so our show didn't air. We finished filming in 2017, and it didn't air until 2019, that fall. Luke was born in we finished it in 2018. We filmed 2018, and then we basically had all of 2019 off from filming. We were still working, but we had our normal jobs that were much easier to manage. And I was pregnant. That whole time. We weren't filming. Luke was born that summer. We got to have just newborn, sweet time at home with him. The show finally aired in November. So he was June to November, however old that is, June, July, August, September, 5 months. So he was still little, but he was old enough that I had those newborn days at home with him and didn't have the pressure to go film. So it was such a gift. And so everything about it was unexpected. And at the time, we honestly didn't know if the season would ever even air, because they were the network was going through all these changes. They kept changing the name of the show, the format, everything was up in the air. And it was kind of like one of those things, we literally just had to hand it again over to God and say, your will, not ours, because part of it, I never really wanted it to air, because it kind of was this little secret thing that we did, and we didn't have to worry about our lives changing. But then I also was like, but we worked really hard, and I kind of did work. And we're like, we kind of want people to see it, I guess. So it was a little bit conflicting, but the timing that it aired was awesome, because Luke, I was able to have him. We actually renovated our house at that time, moved all the kids around to different bedrooms. We're renovating again right now. It's just what we do. But we were able to do all of that and not have the cameras around. And so it was really sweet. So then 2019, the show aired, and we started filming again in February of 2020. And then the pandemic hit, and we never stopped. We were down for 2 weeks, but we had to film all of 2020. And it was crazy, obviously, for everyone. The world was crazy. So that was a really bizarre time. But I also look back and I think the timing, God is so good that the timing of the show airing for us personally was perfect because of our family. and Luke being born. But then the timing of it airing for the world, seeing it, the nation, was really wonderful because people were stuck at home. Like you said, that's how you started watching it. And that's when most people started watching these shows. They were stuck at home. And God just, I feel like we've heard so many stories of people that were like, had hard stories during COVID or even right after that watched our show that were like, we worked really hard to make it, but we never imagined it being something like we were just trying to renovate homes and make them really beautiful and tell good stories of our homeowners along the way. But we never thought this is going to be a type of a ministry where we're encouraging people. And we knew we wanted it to be a positive thing that people could watch with their whole families. And we wanted it to be really authentic. That was something we said from the start. But just the way that God has been able to use it has been really cool because people do watch it. We have so many little kids that watch our show. And like, I just love that. I love that in a world where, as you know, like entertainment industry can be really a dark place. And to just be able to say, Lord, use us as a light in that space. However you see fit. It's been good. It's been hard. It's a lot of work and it's hard. And, it's a lot. But it's been really good to see how God has used it.
Yes. And my favorite thing about this, and it's fresh right now because I'm doing a series on the life of David.
Yes.
But in his early years when he's anointed, God chose him because of his heart posture. It wasn't because of what he was doing. Yes, he was a servant. Yes, he was a shepherd. But his heart posture was one that was just God first. He had a heart after God's own heart. And it's just what you said, you were doing ministry work and you're like, well, we'll do this, but we'll only do it so that, people can know more about this work. Like your heart posture wasn't, we don't want to do this for us. We don't want to do this, period, really.
Right. Yes.
But we'll do it if it's something that that could be a blessing. Yes. And that is why God calls the unexpected. I mean, that is why God chooses who he chooses, and that heart posture is so important. And then next he has the years of preparation. And so I don't know, I can just see the parallels there of God preparing you, and then giving you a season of rest, right?
Yes.
Before you step into the next chapter, which is where you are now. I mean, it's crazy. You've got a book.
Yes.
You've got a furniture line. You've got, I think, another show coming out. You have so much going on. You just got back from Italy, right?
Yeah, we were there this summer. We actually leave again tomorrow. Dave and I are going to check on the house there. Yeah. So we're renovating a house for some friends of ours. And it's going to be another show. It'll be a spinoff series. It'll be Fixer to Fabulous Italiano. But it is actually a really cool God story too, because last summer, I would say 2 years ago, we were in Italy as a family. We have some friends. Their names are Rebecca and Pierre, and we've been friends with them for probably 15 years. And Rebecca has lived in Florence since her early 20s, but she's Dutch. And then her husband, Pierre, is French, but they live in Italy. And they have two boys who are just a little bit younger than our twins are. So our twins are 13. Their boys are 12 and 11, or 11 and 10. I can't remember. They're all right in there.
Close.
So we were there 2 years ago. And at the time, Italy had just opened back up after the pandemic. And we wanted to go back and visit and see our friends there, and just go when it was quiet. And we did, and it was amazing. But at the time, Rebecca and Pierre were looking for a home because they had lived in Florence in an apartment. And during the pandemic, they were stuck in the apartment and it was so hard. And they're like, we need to get to the countryside. So they were looking, and houses were super inexpensive because of the pandemic. And so they were looking, and we were like, oh my gosh, cute. And it was just so fun. So we were looking at stuff with them, and it was just exciting. The house hunt it was just so different. And, you're in Italy, you're like, this is so cool. So anyhow, since that trip, for about a year they looked, and she would text me links and see what I thought. And I would show them to Dave and we'd compare and we'd go back and forth. So we were kind of part of their house hunt process all along. And it was really fun. So they finally found a place. They got it. And last summer when we were there, we visited it, we saw it. We actually stayed there one night, and we were like, this is such a perfect place. And they had all these grand dreams to renovate it. And one of the things they really want to use the space for is to welcome people in, make it kind of like a vacation rental, but more of an experience, kind of like what we did at the Welcome Inn. And so we were just kind of dreaming together, and they were asking us questions about what we did. And I don't remember who, probably Dave, because this seems like a Dave thing. So it's probably Dave's idea. But Dave was like, we should help you renovate it and do it as a show. And I was like, there's no way that our production, like, how would we pull that off? There's just no way. And we sat around at dinner one night. The kids, I remember it was just so fun because one of their friends was in town also, and they were Scottish and Italian. And so the kids were running around, all of our kids, there was a ton of them. And there was English, French, Italian, and then like a Scottish accent. Like, it was just so fun. They were just all having the most fun together. And there were all these different languages and accents. And it just was such a picture of just hospitality and the kingdom of God. Like, everybody just, like, these kids are just the innocence of them and being friends and all of that. Anyway, we were sitting there, we were dreaming about their project, and we were asking them, would you be interested in doing this as part of a show? And again, it was such a far-fetched idea, but they said yes. And we went back and pitched it. And eventually the network said yes. The production company said yes. And it has been so crazy because we started it we went over last fall, and then we started the project in February of this year.
Okay.
And Luke just came up here. Anyway, so we should be done. We're going back next week, or tomorrow. We'll be there all next week. And then we think we'll be done in December. But it's been a learning. Ooh. I mean, again, such a learning process, like just everything about the permitting and all of that. But then the way they build is everything's different. Everything's crazy.
Well, Jenny, I so admire about you that your family is so bold and that you really do say yes. You pick up wherever God is asking, and you're like, okay, we'll do it. And I don't know what it looks like. And you're right. A lot of things that God asks us to do are not easy. Like, it's not something that we necessarily would have chosen for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that is like the beautiful part about life. It's like you got to sit there in Italy and watch those kiddos run around. Mm-hmm. And my other favorite part about you, I was thinking about this over the last few days. I was like, my favorite part about Jenny is that she, as crazy as her life is, has the perspective of seeing God in everything. You see God in like the little moments. All of your captions, all of your Instagram, everything points back to God in it. And I just think that is special, and that's a gift. And it, again, is a testament to your heart and your heart posture and why God chose you to do all of these things. And I'm just so proud of you as a friend.
Thank you.
And I've loved watching.
The thing about the Italy show is I love the country there. I love the people, the language, everything. Like, this, the feeling when we're there as a family. Our kids love it because it's sort of like a step back in time. Like, they can run around and just be kids. And there's just this, kids are just so loved there. There's not like, oh, be quiet. Like, they're welcome everywhere.
They're part of the community. They're part of it.
It's amazing. They go out and play soccer while we're having dinner. And anyway, but at the same time, I am so afraid of flying. I can't, it's one of the things that I've had lots of crazy stories with flying, but it's a fear of mine that I've been working on forever. But every time I have to get on the plane, like tomorrow, I have to fly over there. And it's not, why, God, why do I have to go somewhere so far away? I say it all the time. But I think he planted that love for a place that's far away and for people that I care deeply for and I want to go and spend time with and see. And the only way to get there is to get on an airplane and literally have to battle a fear every single time. And I think that it's become a sweet time, I guess, between like between the Lord and I, when we're on a plane, even though I'm terrified, it has become like he's taught me like this is the like you have to do this because you are afraid and you have no control. Right. This is the time when I'm, completely there's nothing I can do.
Dependent on him.
Yes,
right.
Yes. And so I think that we've gone over this year. I think this will be our 5th trip, and every time it's hard. But also when I get there, it's so worth it. It's amazing. And we're doing this work that's incredible and so fun and exciting. But it really is so hard for me to get there. It really is. Like I have like a severe fear. And Jesus meets me every time. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm grateful for the way that he keeps reminding me, like, you are not in control. Like that, you none of this is of your own power. You have to depend on me. And it literally puts me in a position and a place where I have no choice but to depend on him. And so there's no way for me to say, oh, I did all this stuff on my own. No, I didn't do any of this. He did this. Mm-hmm. It's his. It's for my good and his glory. But he reminds me with something that I'm constantly trying to, figure out, how can I get over this fear? I can't. It's okay if I have that, because it makes me depend on him. And I think that's why I have that fear. But anyway, yeah. So it's been a lesson. It's hard, but it's good.
What would you say to someone who might feel the nudge from God to step into something unexpected, something that they may not have chosen for themselves, but they feel like it's what God is calling them to. Yeah. But it's out of their comfort zone. It might be something that's like steeped in a fear of theirs even. Like for me, doing this podcast, this is not my comfort zone. Right. And here we are. Yep. So what would you say to someone who is struggling with that right now?
Yeah, I think, I mean, for me, it's always stuff that's out of my comfort zone that God asked me to do, it seems like. But I think going back to what we said at the beginning, that phrase, little by little, just what God, okay, I'm overwhelmed by the idea of this big thing. So help me to see the thing that you want me to do, the next thing, the one thing, the small thing, whatever that small beginning is, whatever that is, whether it's, buying the podcast equipment, and that's it. And don't worry about what has to happen after that. Just do that one thing. For me, it's packing my bag and going to the airport. Like, that is very hard, but I have to just do it because it's just that one thing. And then he'll show you the next thing, and he'll be with you. And he reminds us always, I'm going ahead of you. I'm staying behind you. I'm staying with you.
Yes.
So you just have to go and do the thing, but don't get so caught up in the big picture, because like, for example, for us, for the show at the beginning, I was very overwhelmed, like thinking, if people watch this, I don't know if they will, but if they do, what happens? Like, how do I protect my kids? What about if somebody says something bad about our family? Because we are a transracial family. We are adoptive parents. Our family looks different. And what do I do? I can't imagine someone saying something bad about my kids, or what if they judge my designs, or all of these what ifs. And it was so but then I was like, I don't even know if anybody's going to watch this. So all I had to do was say, okay, let's figure out the house, and let's make a plan, and let me order some tile. And okay, I need to pick paint colors. So it's like every one of those little things, every one of those little steps is what I had to focus on, instead of the big picture of all of the what ifs, because it turns out God's in it, of course. And so once you get to the what ifs, he's there, and he meets you there, and he's already prepared you to get to that what if place in all those little step-by-step things that you've been doing. He's prepared you for that. And most of the time, your what if scenarios and what you think you're stepping into don't even happen. Like, he has a different plan. He has a better plan. And you really don't even know what he's doing most of the time with whatever it is that you're doing, So, yeah, I think just do the thing, the one thing. Don't get caught up in the big thing. Yeah, the small thing.
I love that you said that. I literally, before coming here, took this picture. I had my Bible open, and this was the picture that I took, and it could not tie in more beautifully.
Oh.
Galatians 6:4. It says, "Let everyone be devoted to fulfill the work God has given them to do with excellence, and their joy will be in doing what's right and being themselves, and not in being affirmed by others."
That's
and
good.
I was like, that is
Wow.
so good.
Yes,
Like, and it
that's so
literally
good.
says, and being themselves. Just do the work that God has for you, and do it with joy, and do it, as yourself, and not for the
Others.
world, because ultimately it's not the world that we answer to, right?
Well, I was going to say, a lot of times the things that we're uncomfortable with, like you said, the podcast, or for me, the show, all of it, I'm uncomfortable with filming and doing all the things. But a lot of those things we're uncomfortable with, it's because we're thinking, how are people going to perceive this? How am I going to be judged? What are people going to think? It's all about people and me, not about how can God use it. And so that's where those insecurities and fears and doubts, they all come from thinking about the audience instead of the one audience we should only focus on. And so that sounds easy to shift your focus, but it's not easy. It's really hard when you're stepping into something and you're putting yourself out there. And I'm sure Shay deals with this as well with music. Like when you do something specifically creative, a creative thing, you're really being so vulnerable. You really are. You're saying, this is something that is a part of who I am. This is a gift that God gave me. I'm putting it out there for the world to see and judge and critique and affirm, or whatever they're going to do with it. But it's a vulnerability, and it's a very hard thing to do, to put yourself out there. But you have to, if you're going to do it, you have to go into it with the mindset of not worrying about the audience of the people, of God. He's the only one who matters. If you fear him, you need fear nothing else. He's the only one. And it is hard, though, when you read people's judgments, or you hear things that, critiques. It's hard.
I mean, you're now on a platform, right? You now have this huge, like, a worldwide audience. So it's like, for better or for worse. And I used to say, when I married Shay, I used to say, well, he's in the spotlight, but I married him, so I'm in the sidelight. And I didn't want to be necessarily. I mean, literally, I didn't even want to date him because of what he did.
Yes.
But when I was in it, I was like, okay, God, I'm going to give you the glory. Like, whatever eyes come to me, I just want to point them back up, because that's not what I'm here for. And I think that that's really all he ever asked anyone. And it's funny, even what you say about, like, making yourself less and looking, towards others and looking towards God, like fixing your eyes on God. Because even if you look at statistics of, like, depression and suicide, and, like, even in teens and kids, like, we've got kids, and but it's that exposure to other people and the comparison that it brings, and the need for validation from the world. And it's like, that's the counterculture that we're pushing against, is to put ourselves out there while not making it about us. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the juxtaposition. Putting ourselves out there for God's glory, but it's not about us. It's about who we can help and what God is asking us to do there.
Yeah.
So you've been so faithful. You've answered that call so well. Is there anything else you want to share about fostering and your ministry?
Yeah, no, our daughter, we adopted our daughter when she was 2.5, and that was a crazy long process. That was, I feel like you said, training ground. Like, God prepares you. He was preparing us through that process for so much of what was to come, and what his heart is, what his character is, all of those things. But we are really passionate about adoption, but even more so about keeping families together. That's something that we're really just adoption is based in brokenness. There's a need for it. Obviously, we believe in it, and we felt called to adopt, but not everyone does. And that's good. It's a hard thing. But if we can keep kids and moms together in the first place, that's plan A. Plan B is adoption. Not that our daughter is plan B, but just that the way God created families. So that's something that we've really tried to focus on as far as how can we help. And so we partnered many years ago with an organization called Help One Now, and they are all about trying to break the cycle of extreme poverty around the world and keep one of the main goals is education, but also keeping families together. Those two things are really important, and empowering families. We have a family empowerment program. So you basically are giving skills to parents and helping them launch new businesses. And we have a 2-year program where we basically put these families through this program. The parents can then essentially have a job, have a career, start a new business, help their whole community, and also support their kids, send their kids to school, all of those things, but really just keeping that family together. And we work locally in our community with the children's shelter and with foster programs. We are huge advocates here too, but for whatever reason, God really put Africa, specifically right now, Zimbabwe is where we've been working for 10 years, on our hearts. And we get a lot of questions like, well, what are you doing here? And we are doing stuff here. We are, but the need there is just so different. The extreme level of poverty is so different than we see in our community. And so really getting our farm here, we fund a training program as well in Zimbabwe, just specifically through our farm, where we take orphaned and abandoned teens and put them through, if they want to join the program, they go through this program, and it's basically a trade school. It's a farm. They learn how to farm. They learn construction, welding. The girls, there's sewing. There's all these different trades that they learn because they don't have a family. They don't have any way when they turn 18. They have no support system. So we're trying to give them skills to be the change in their community. And that's where it starts, education. But education is complicated because you can't just send a 15-year-old to school who's been living on the streets all his life and he's never gone to school. And the public school system there is very different. And so it doesn't work. So sending him to school is not going to help. He's not going to, that's just not going to work. So we're focused on, and it's not our idea. It was our leaders on the ground, John and Orpa, who they are Zimbabwean. They know their community and they know their needs. And they basically said, this is what we want to do. And we said, okay, let's help you. And our farm funds their program, and they are the ones doing the work there. And they are the most godly, incredible, joyful, just humble, and just amazing people that I've ever met, I've ever known. They're two of my just mentors of the faith, also heroes of the faith, I would say. And our kids consider them grandparents. They are part of our family. We've been there, they've been here. We just consider them part of our family. And so every year when we do our big Berry Fest fundraiser, our kids are part of it. They've been a part of the berry farm from day one. Charlotte was in a carrier on my back while we were planting the berry plants. But every summer they help completely. The boys always do a lemonade stand. The kids are always out picking. They're always doing all this, and they donate all that. They know the money, where the money's going. They know it's going to John and Orpa and the work John and Orpa are doing. And I think that's what makes it so impactful and so life-changing for our family and heart. It's the posture of the heart again, because we know it's community. It's not just nameless, faceless, we're sending a check. It's we are in community. Even though we live across the globe, they are family, and we love them. They love us. We all are in this together to change our community here, because our community is very much impacted by the work and by the farm and their community there. The communities are very different. The work is very different, but they're both ministries happening and being impacted, and families are impacted by both facets. So yeah, it's, I think, if you ask Dave or I what we want our legacy to be and our legacy is for our kids, it is the berry farm. That's what we're the most passionate about, is that work. And I think teaching them to have a heart of generosity, but mostly, yes, that's very important, but also to have to understand the importance of relationship. And because if you're different than someone and you have a relationship with them, you are, it's okay. Like that's what the world needs. We need to be allowed to communicate sit across the table from one another and be super different and speak different languages and all the things, but know that we're in our core humans and we have that humanity and we're all image bearers of God. And so I think them understanding that has been really just, that's what the best part of all of it is, you know?
That's the greatest part. And that is, it's your legacy. It's not even just, you know, Berry Farm and like all the kids and all the people whose lives you're impacting, but your very children, because they're not just doing the work, but they have seen their parents who've come together and built this life and have lived their life for other people in the spotlight. And that is not an easy thing to do. And I so applaud you for it. And to go back to something you said about it not being for everyone in Zimbabwe or you know, wherever it is, I just want to pull out. I know many people in ministry, and they will tell you, I've heard at least, that God puts a specific area, a specific nation, a specific call or people on your heart, and that is what God calls you to. I know people, and it's Haiti. I know people, and it's, you know, just across the board. But that's why we are considered the body of Christ. It takes all parts to be the hands and feet. We can't all be in the same place doing the same thing, or we wouldn't be effective. He calls us to all places. He calls us to all nations. And so for anyone that's ever said a bad word about that or has made you feel guilty about, what about here? God will put that on someone's heart for here, you know? And if you see a need, then that probably means that God's calling you to fill it.
Exactly.
So, I just wanted to speak to that because I do hate naysayers and I do hate when someone has to point to something negative about something that you're desperately, you know, hoping to be a light in that area. So is there anything else that you want to share about or anything else that's been on your heart or a favorite unexpected before we wrap up?
I don't know if people know that we're doing a project with your family.
I didn't know we were allowed to say that.
Oh, yeah, we are.
I was like,
I don't know what we're allowed to say. I just get in trouble afterwards.
A little teaser.
Yeah, a little teaser.
It's fun. You know what? We'll ask for forgiveness. How about that?
Yes, exactly. I'm not going to give anything away, but we are working with your family and Jay's family, extended family, on a project for the show. And so it's been really so sweet for us to get to know all of your family better. And it's the kids. I remember we went down this summer. And the kids just
play.
They were like, we were on our way. No, it was last spring. We were on our way to spring break. You were visiting Shay's parents, and we stopped on our way. And the kids had a ball. Like they were instant friends. And I just love that. I love how kids can just go and
just pick up.
Yes. And our families it was just a sweet time. And our kids always ask about the project that we're working on and they want to go back down. And anyway, it's a very exciting project. So exciting, actually. It's really cool. But
it is.
That is a little teaser. Yeah. So you will be on season 5, Hannah.
All right. And honestly, it just gives us time to see you. And that's what I'm most excited about.
That's exactly.
So, but you're right. The kids picked up just like family.
Yes. And we get to work with Shay's dad, who you mentioned earlier, Rick, on this project. He's a builder, he's been helping us because it's about an hour and a half away from our house. So we have him on the ground, and he truly, both of Shay's parents, oh my gosh, they are just the real deal. Like they are just good people. You sit like just when we're working and then we go to lunch, and both of them, like just everything they say is so intentional. Like every word carries so much weight and meaning and wisdom. And it's been really amazing to be around both Cindy and Rick. They're incredible, and
they are
all of the family. So anyway, it's good to see. Just being, I don't know, it's always fun to see extended families, you know, I love it. So it's been a fun project.
And the other part too is let's not forget that I think Dave and Shay could have been born brothers. They're so similar.
I know.
They're dreamers.
They really are. Yes.
They're dreamers, and I love that about them.
Yes.
And you know what? It makes for a really exciting life, right? Maybe one that's unexpected, but
yes, you never know what's going to happen. Just like today, I didn't realize we were, doing all the things today, but here we are. So it does. It's unexpected and exciting and fun, and it's always an adventure, which is good. So yeah.
It is. Well, Jenny, thank you so much. Really, I can't thank you enough. I know you've got 1,001 things going on in your life. You've got kiddos, you've got ministry work, you've got work, you've got renovations. You're doing it all. And you still took time out to visit with us today. And I know that someone out there is going to get something from it. So I can't wait to see you. We're actually coming in like 2 weeks-ish. So maybe I'll get to see you and like hug your neck in person. But I'm glad that I got to catch you here today.
Me too. Thank you for having me. It was awesome. I always love talking to you.
I love you.
Love you too.
Thank you so much for listening today. If this episode has encouraged you, please feel free to share the show with your family and friends. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world today, and my hope is that this show is a candle in the dark.
What a fun episode. Y'all, thanks for listening today. Don't forget, go check out more from Hannah by searching Unexpected with Hannah Love in your podcast app and hitting follow to listen to more of her episodes.
And come back to see us tomorrow because we're going to continue to share a variety of episodes from our network shows. Hit the follow button on this feed too, and we'll see you tomorrow.